I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And today we are in the very haunted Fitzpatrick Hotel.
Boogity boogity.
Boogity boogity, with all the ghosties that tormented Chris last night. If you are a parajunkie over on our Patreon, we went live while we were investigating the hotel, and it was disturbing, to say the least.
Yeah, it was odd.
Yes. But we are actually here today with Brittany, who is the Director of Operations of the Fitzpatrick. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself first. But
yeah, so hey, everybody. I'm Brittany Buttrey. I'm the Director of Fitzpatrick Industries. We're a conglomerate of businesses that operate out of this property. So we run the Fitz, which is this business, Maddie's Public House, which is our restaurant bar operation. We have a catering company. We do a lot of like weddings and private events and stuff here. The hotel lends itself well to that. And then we also have an entertainment company where my husband, who's a professional musician, books 2 bands here a week, and then bands for other private clients in town, as well as we run a small business pipeline called Washington Wilkes Makers Market.
Oh, nice.
That helps to give, it's a business incubator, so it helps to give people who are running, creatives who are running small businesses from their home, an opportunity to set up in a retail space 4 times a year in hopes that we can grow them into a storefront one day in our downtown corridor. And we've been successful with it a few times already. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So we've got a lot going on, and a 18-week-old baby.
Oh my gosh. Look, you
just piled it all on that plate.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's my style. So.
Absolutely. Yes, so we wanted to bring Brittany on to talk about, the history of the hotel and also all the spooky stuff that happens in here. Brittany, how about let's start out with one of your favorite rooms. What do you have one in particular?
Right. So, there are 17 rooms here at the hotel, and they're all unique. The hotel has obviously been around for nearly 130 years, has always been a hotel. It was dormant for about 50 years, and it got in some pretty derelict condition. The rooms are all different. I have loved different ones for different reasons. 201 is our suite. It's a beautiful suite. It's where we host brides at, so I have a lot of great memories in that room. I love 301, the room right above the suite. It's the one that makes me feel the most at home. And then when I stay here, if I have to stay overnight for any reason, I usually stay in room 200, which is right here by the ballroom, and it was the children's room when the Fitzpatrick family lived here. So it's got a lot of good stories too. But I like that room.
Ooh, the children.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Children ghosts freak me out a little bit. I love them. Don't mind. Don't read into that too much. But it's
They're persistent.
They're persistent
and not always considerate.
Yeah.
So our children ghosts, I really like to think of them as kind of just mischievous and fun, right?
Sure.
So we have some people who identify a male here, but the most we interact with are 2 young females. The 2 young females that I presume are the ones that died in room 200. They were both children of Thomas Fitzpatrick, the man who built the hotel. And we have fun with them. They have fun with our guests. They have fun in the rooms, especially the ballroom. They have a lot of fun in here. Anyway.
How did they pass?
Yeah. So one of them died of scarlet fever, which was pretty common. So the Fitz family had a ton of kids, right? And they kind of put them all in room 200. That's where they lived. They all shared a room. And the other one fell down the stairs. There's a really steep staircase between the room 307, where I think you're staying, and 205, the room below it, that wooden staircase. And I guess she like broke her neck or injured herself to the point that she did succumb to her injuries in room 200. So both the girls were under 4 when they died. So it wouldn't be a haunted hotel without like 2 dead little girls, right?
Sure.
So,
You know?
Check that off the list.
Right. Yeah. Every haunted hotel must have 2 dead children. It's a requirement
preferably
now.
of a
And if
similar
they could
age.
speak in unison, that would be nice.
Yeah.
To put that on the order.
Somebody on one of our para-junkies, I don't know who it was, but somebody said that the hotel reminded them of The Shining, but...
You know, that's funny. So Casey and I'm from Athens, Georgia, but we lived in Atlanta. We lived and worked there for a while. We decided we wanted to leave the city, and we just sort of like opened ourselves up to opportunities. Had some bad stuff happen in Atlanta. We're just ready to move on, right?
Sure.
And we had the opportunity to invest ourselves in this space and build the restaurant and stuff. And we moved here, and we were like getting settled, and we were like, this is the beginning of our horror movie.
Yeah.
Like young couple.
Take over the haunted hotel.
Yeah,
and,
like, you know, good spirited come to like take over hotel. Now people are like, do you guys live here? And I'm like, hell no.
No.
Like, why would we live in the hotel? Like, I don't want my life ruined, you know, like, or I don't want to become possessed. No, I'm just kidding. But
So she says.
yeah, exactly.
You know, it's interesting though that you say that one of the girls died by falling down the stairs, because we had a very strange incident happen last night where we JT Debris and I were all sharing a room down on the main floor, and we had just wrapped up doing our live stream, and we're all like turning down at the end of the night, and we hear the loudest thud come down the stairs, and we thought Chris was still out wandering around looking for ghosts and stuff. And so JT literally is like, if Chris doesn't respond in 3 minutes, I'm going out there and I'm going to get him. You know, it's because we thought he fell down the stairs. It was like thunderous noise.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, sure. JT corrected me, 3 seconds.
Yeah,
he was much more concerned.
Want to make sure Chris is super dead when we go out there. Yeah.
Because I don't want to walk up on him and have him suffer. I'd like him to be just good and dead.
So, right. So if you were a kid in a hotel, right?
Yeah.
So, and there was a grand staircase or multiple grand staircases, it would definitely be a place you would play.
Absolutely.
So, you know, we get a ton of feedback from people about kids or hearing little footsteps run up and down the stairs. So probably one of the most jarring experiences I've had here personally as a skeptic was one day when we first took the hotel over. We've increased the occupancy rate a lot over the past few years, just promoting it and being available and trying to let people have good experiences here of different kinds. There was a nurse staying here. We have a lot of business persons during the week. She came downstairs and said to me, this is long before we had a child or even thought about having a child. She came downstairs and said to me, I heard your little girl playing on the stairs and in the ballroom this morning. And I was like, oh, that's cute, but I don't have any kids and it's just me and you here right now. Like
good.
Everyone else is gone for the day. And she was like, no, it was like a little girl. I was like, yeah, that's, you know,
Yeah, no.
sounds about right, but just me and you, sister. So
Well, it's funny, in the ballroom, I personally saw like what looked like more of a woman standing over by this mirror.
we get that too.
Yeah, that was kind of just like, okay, you know, that makes sense, because especially the way this room is set up, there's 2 mirrors facing each other, which is, you know, perfect way to attract a spirit or let something in.
Some of our local paranormal enthusiasts, and like I said, we like to consider ourselves para-positive here.
I love
like,
that.
Please bring it on, do your thing, come, you know, have fun here. So this room, of course, with the 2 mirrors, that mirror has a gunshot in it.
Is that what that is?
Yeah. So
Okay.
At one time when the hotel was derelict, this room was filled with pigeons, and they would let little boys, once a year, they'd pay little boys to come in here, like, I don't know, a dime a pigeon, and shoot pigeons. So that's birdshot. And which is funny, no duel, just birdshot. Yeah. But I've been told before that the gunshot helps to alleviate just that break, alleviate some of the vortex.
Mm-hmm.
But
yes, absolutely.
It does.
So I guess that's good, because mirror vortexes are not always good.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
A broken plane, you know, normally we would say never break a mirror
Yeah.
But in instances of that kind of vortex behavior,
It-
if you are inclined to believe these things,
Yeah.
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
is how you interrupt a dangerous vortex.
Although in 307, you've got like the ultimate vortex going on in there, which is the room Chris is staying in, by the way, if you haven't picked that one up. He's got like 3 mirrors just surrounding the bed.
Yep.
Yeah, just crowding me in.
They triangulate around the bed. Yeah,
exactly.
that's always good.
Well done.
So what was the design thought process?
So to be honest with you, we have never changed the setup of that room. So when we took the hotel over, it came with, when our investor bought the hotel, it came with a ton of furniture. We've added a couple of things here and there and taken some things out. But we've rearranged a lot of rooms to feel more homey to us. But 307 is a room that we have never rearranged. So we just left it that way because I felt like the first time I went in there, I felt like this is creepy. And this is what this room is supposed to feel like.
It's solid. It's a solidly creepy room. When you walk in, you instantly get like, it almost feels like, the air just
And I think that we've
settles.
had enough paranormal pursuits in that room that I wouldn't doubt it if other people before you had set it up for success, if you will.
Sure.
People who are knowledgeable.
Yeah.
The Ghost Brothers.
Yes.
Did an episode here.
Prior to us being here, they came and did
Right. It was like their first season.
To be a comedy piece here.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed the Ghost Brothers because they use comedy to offset their nerves. But apparently one of the brothers did Bloody Mary in my room in the mirrors. And I'm like,
is it
why is that's not even a part of this?
Is it the vanity mirror?
Yeah.
And y'all made me sit on that? Oh my God.
Actually, it might be the dresser mirror.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen it, but I think I saw a picture and it looked like he was standing in front of the
Don't do that.
scariest sounding mirror because I have to constantly adjust it, and it just makes that.
The one when you walk into the room that's right across there, that was a good one. Yeah. And it's nice and like Mercury cloudy too, so it gives extra.
So it gives you your eyes are just like, I see this, I see that.
Mm-hmm.
You're having a romper room moment. I see Timmy and I see Johnny.
But it was just like the second that we got in there, it was, or like the second you got in there, weird things started happening with the lights. We had to.
Oh, right. I had to replace 2 light bulbs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because one was just flickering. And then the bathroom one was flickering. And then the one right next to my bed just went out.
So with a hotel full of chandeliers, all the light fixtures are reproductions from the original light fixtures, which would have been gas. But there are thousands of light bulbs here. And I think that we probably go through a lot more light bulbs than your regular hotel.
It was odd because they were all fine when I first got here. And they're not... they're the LED light bulbs, so you don't expect them to flicker like that.
Yeah.
The one next to the door, the lamp, when we turned off the lamp, it would stay on for a second, flickering, and then just like, oh, okay, I get it.
A lot of the TVs do that too, so that's always fun.
Excellent.
Yes.
It was just weird though, because JT was trying. He's like, well, maybe it got untwisted a little bit. Let's try to fix it. Nothing. Literally nothing. And the poor kid that came up with you.
I'm sorry about that because I may have just spooked him.
Oh, one of our staff?
Yes. Yeah, because
a young man, curly hair.
Yes.
He's precious.
Yes,
yeah.
He was very.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was very sweet, but I think I was, and I was not trying to be creepy about it, but it was a creepy thing because
he knows all the stories.
He turned it on and it was just like, all right, because you don't expect it. Yeah. These lights they're not filaments.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't make sense that there's like a loose thing. They should just kind of dim brown out. At least I'm not used to. They either work or they don't.
Right.
Yeah. But our crew's pretty used to that. We have a 25-person crew here that helps us with all the things that we do. And either you work here and you're a skeptic, or obviously you're a believer. But everybody has their own sort of stories to tell. And we're here at late night a lot. We're here, I feel like, and maybe this is just because the traffic of people is increased when we have events. I don't know. I feel like it shakes up things. The energy
Sure.
Absolutely.
pumps them up.
Yeah.
We get a lot of reports, a lot of stuff. And then of course that's when our staff experiences the most stuff, is when they're, the hotel's full, we're having something, we're partying late at night, we've got some sort of celebration, I feel like that they really get energized.
That makes sense. Well, and a lot of times spirits need that energy that we give them, which is why oftentimes we say like low energy, low residual type entities. They are more prone to try to scare you because they're trying to get that boost of,
Right. It changes the quality, because like if you're constantly busy, they're feeding off that energy.
Yes.
And that gives them just a little more oomph to get around. But when it's derelict, they become hungry.
Which is why I think that all of our experiences that we typically have, I'm not saying always, but the vast majority of the experiences people have here are positive. I feel like they're not as hungry as they used to be.
Sure.
And I feel like that they, especially the adult that we experience, the adult female that we experience, seems to be just happy somebody's taking care of it. Like, I feel like that because we're stewards and we're good stewards of her permanent home, that she'll leave me alone because I am taking care of her place and bringing her fun people to play with, like you guys.
Right.
And since it has always been a hotel, you haven't altered its purpose, and you're fulfilling its purpose.
Correct.
And that makes a huge difference. Like if you came in and turned this place into offices or something like that.
She feels at home. That's
Right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Now the question is, when we did the SC's method, for those of you who are listening who haven't heard earlier episodes, I should say, where we've talked about the SC's method, it's basically where you put one person in deprivation. So you put a blindfold on, you wear noise-canceling headphones attached to a spirit box, and bless the spirit box, and that person is just listening for words coming through the spirit box while somebody else in the room is asking questions. So we like to do this a lot on investigations because you can find really, really interesting evidence through this particular method.
And you don't find yourself looking for answers.
Right.
Because you show a person a fuzzy picture and you say there's a face, they're likely to see a face.
Sure.
If you have a bunch of sound going on and you ask a question, they're looking for the answer to the question. So by creating that deprivation, you're reducing the chances that your imagination is a part of that
naturally
factor. And so when you get direct answers to questions, what is your name, and they give you a name, that is a very interesting thing. And we got that last night.
Are you kidding me?
Oh,
Yeah.
we did. We got the name Elizabeth.
Okay.
Which is a common name from the Victorian era. So, but I wanted to see if that rung any bells with you.
So, let's see. So, the Pope family, obviously there are lots of Elizabeths in that family. They were financiers and backers of the property. And I'm not sure to be honest with you, I'm not sure what Thomas Fitzpatrick's family member was that caused the incident in 307. Skeet probably could tell you what her name was. So 307, the situation with that room is that the Fitzpatrick has famous New Year's Eve parties. Every year we throw one. They love it. I guess they being like our permanent guests, if you will. So 307, she was a daughter of Thomas Fitzpatrick as an adult, caught her husband in that room with another woman during that New Year's Eve party, and they had an altercation, and she pushed that woman out of the window of 307. So the woman that got pushed out of the window, I don't think she died. There are conflicting stories, but I believe Skeet confirmed with me that she did not die.
Before history is written, it's played. Before it's frozen in time, it's fought one shift at a time. Before it's etched in silver, it's carved in ice. What happens next will last forever. The Stanley Cup Final on ABC and ESPN Plus begins Saturday.
But what we feel is like the woman who checks that room is or the woman who engages with that room the most, is our most disgruntled ghost. So she probably, if you're a couple staying in that room, she's like checking on you, seeing what you're doing in there, maybe a little bit of a voyeur. I'm just kidding.
It's fair.
It's a hotel after all.
Right.
But anyway, so people just feel like a presence in there of someone. It's just sort of ominous, I guess. But
well, and that's we often say this: you don't have to die to create a haunting.
Sure.
Any spike of high emotional content, anytime that a person is going through the apex of their emotional journey, moments of trauma, moments of elation,
extreme creativity.
Yeah, what you're basically doing is you're putting into an environment, basically like a bookmark,
an imprint.
This is what happened, and under right circumstances, you can tap into that energy, which also allows for other spirits. Like we talk about people getting attached, walking around. You just walking around, a ghost be like, I like you, and just follow you around. But if you go to a place that has an event like that, where there's energy that is just self-sustaining, the spirit might disattach to be there. So a lot of times, ghosts in buildings are not about the building at all. They don't actually necessarily have anything to do with the actual building. You had a moment.
Yeah, like that other people, other disgruntled lovers could have attached themselves to that situation through the years.
True.
Right. Yeah, the solidarity. They like, I recognize this rage. I
That's
felt this
great.
rage.
Yeah, room of rage, of sexual rage.
Yes.
Sexual rage.
Fascinating.
Well, and it's interesting too, with that room in particular, because when we were doing the Estes method, it was a little frustrating because there were so many things that were like pushing each other off the feed, basically.
And we asked how many spirits there were.
Yeah, and it said 6.
And it said 6.
Right
there
on.
were 6 right there. Yeah.
And
That's too many occupants in that room for our code.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's against the. We should go up there right now and be
And
like,
tell
hey,
them.
listen,
Occupancy code's 3 in here, guys. Get out.
and the parajunkies were all like,
spread it out, like a beautiful hotel.
but yeah, they had me sit on the vanity seat.
Okay.
And I was getting so annoyed with them because we usually put me in the Estes chamber, if you will. For some reason, they seem to come through a lot just because I'm very sensitive.
Okay.
And so I was getting so irritated because one was something was touching my back the entire time. It kept feeling like 3 fingers stroking down my back. And there got to be a moment where I was like, can you stop? I was like, stop touching me or we're going to be done because this is too much.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, it was like a man coming through saying like, don't trust her. Like after we got the name Elizabeth, and then
there's a lot of don't trusts and contradictory things, as if trying to keep us from either learning something or just vying for attention, because it definitely seemed like we were talking to multiple people. If you were following the conversation,
it's fascinating.
It was like every now and then it would be like we're on a different train. Somebody else is trying to tell us something different.
When a person experiences that kind of trauma, like frequently the way that some people deal with that sort of thing is sharing it with others, right? So maybe the kinds of spirits that are attracted to 307 are those that want to share their like kind of lame story, Well,
the concept of catharsis, because we talk about releasing spirits all the time, or how do you get a spirit to go to the light, or things of that nature. None of which we actually know concrete. We have a lot of ideas and a lot of belief systems around it, but it's very likely that it could just be the need to have their story known, that have that pain that they carry released and let go.
Yeah,
we've had.
It might be a lesson for life.
Yeah.
Honestly,
don't wait until you're dead.
It's true. Go talk to a therapist.
Somebody.
But well, that was kind of the case for another spirit that not in this building, but a past investigation we did in our own studio.
Yeah.
And we had a spirit named Celia, and that was like the consensus that we got out of it, because the person who was doing the questioning and things like that, they were trying to get her to move over to the light or whatever. But I was like, I don't think that's what she wants. I think she wanted just somebody to sympathize with her, because the space that we were in was an old train station.
Okay.
And she was a slave, and we believe from what we could tell is that she had been purchased in Savannah and had moved to Missouri where the incident actually happened. And we were picking up on the energy she had left behind is basically the consensus. But yeah, I'm like, not all spirits want to move on. And that's also a really important thing to note when you're going into an investigation, because a lot of people go into it with this mindset of being heroic and being like, I'm going to free all the ghosts. And it's like, not all ghosts want to be freed.
Yeah.
You know, some like where they are, or there's a reason why they're sticking around,
Yeah.
or sometimes it's a residual haunting and you're not going to get rid of that. But, you know, it's interesting to note that with this particular
absolutely.
hotel as well.
Well, yeah, and it's always interesting when you have a building that gets focal points and people have stories. Can you run us down just basically a list of the
greatest hits?
Yeah, exactly.
the greatest
the
hits.
peaks of ghost stories that are told in this space.
So sure. So the room 200 is fun because it's sort of the anchor for the kids, right? So if you stay in room 200, those 2 young girls that die in there, we get a lot of reports of people waking up with a sore throat in that room, which has kind of harkens back to scarlet fever, we think, which was a lot kind of like a really bad case of strep throat, I guess.
I woke up with a sore throat this morning.
In
But it
307?
was literally in 307, but it was literally like, oh no, I've got COVID, and then it was gone. Like literally like I had been stabbed in the throat.
The ghost of COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it was just like, huh, that was weird.
That is
because it
weird.
woke me up. The pain in my throat woke me
Fascinating.
up. Like I'd swallowed, when you have a very bad sore throat.
Oh, yeah.
And it literally just like, oh, okay.
okay.
Not a fun way to wake up.
Anyway, sorry.
No. So, and some other stuff we reported in 200. We get a lot of course, like I said, running up and down the stairs, a lot of playing in the ballroom. If you were a child that lived in this hotel, there's no doubt that when this ballroom was empty, you would play in it. So that totally makes sense. Personal experiences that I've had as a super skeptic, I guess, things that should not be moving, like being projected, not just like falling, but like being projected across a space. So right outside the bridal suite, we like to keep fresh flowers around a lot when we can. The flower arrangement, came off the table, but very with force. The kitchen crew reports. Of course, a lot of flickering of lights, a lot of spinning of lids, just mischievous stuff kids would do, knocking books over, sort of stuff like that. We get a lot of that kind of stuff. And then we get some reports, of course, of electronics just being super naughty in the hotel. So some rooms that you can't get the TV off, like you have to unplug the television to get it to turn off. And even then, it's a pain in the butt. And people feel like they hear noises coming from electronics, like residual buzzing and stuff like that in the hotel. And then other stuff, someone's reported to me before that in 202, they felt like this, I heard this twice before for 202, that they felt like there was a cat on their bed. You know how you feel like when your kitty gets on the bed at night, so that's interesting. And then of course, for me, the most compelling thing about the hotel is that it is built on the original municipal graveyard for the community. So that's always a ringer, right?
Absolutely.
So, the city of Washington is a very, very old community. The first city in the nation to be named Washington after George Washington. Had been a settlement for quite some time before that. Our square is in its original location. The buildings are a little bit more spread out than they were back then. They were a little closer in. There wasn't as much of a municipal street and things like that. So the original settlement was a French settlement predominantly for traders, trappers, things of that nature. And they built a cemetery that really, if up here where we are, starts about the beginning of the ballroom, and it goes back to the back of where our dumpster is for the hotel. So it's a pretty big space. I would say it's about as long and wide as almost as long as a football field, and maybe the same dimensions as a football field, sort of. So this would have been the back of the building back then. And basically right outside the back door, a few tens of feet, would have been the municipal cemetery, because that's just the way that things worked. So when they built the cemetery, they buried all kinds of people in it. So not just people that could afford to be buried there, like our current cemetery, or who have reserved plots. I mean, everybody probably from slaves to like Revolutionary War folks would have been buried there. So when they built the hotel, there was a fire in the latter half of the 19th century. After that, the Fitzpatrick brothers built the hotel from a destroyed West Square. And when they built it, they didn't bother moving the bodies. It was just too much work. What they did was they took some of the notable tombstones, names that people knew. Like I said, that Revolutionary War general that was buried here, or whatever. They took those tombstones and relocated
people
them
who
to
would
our
be missed.
Yes, right. Exactly. Those that would be, So they took those tombstones and moved them to our new cemetery, which is lovely, and it's called Rest Haven. And there are lots of great stories about Rest Haven.
Rest Haven.
Rest Haven. It's great. We do actually do a ghost walk there a couple times a year.
It's a great name, by the way. I want to take a moment to appreciate Rest Haven. That is out of a book. That is purely, we're going down to Rest Haven Cemetery.
King come out with
Yeah,
that?
exactly.
So they moved their headstones there, but all the bodies are still below. So our basement is like a traditional root cellar. It is a dirt floor basement. So I always tell my kids when I say kids, I mean like our high school kids that work here, we use that space you'll see when you go down there, predominantly for storage. So like all of our Halloween decorations, all of our Christmas decorations, they're all down there in boxes, right? So when I send the kids down there to go get them, because I don't go down there, it's just like, I'm like, don't bleed on the floor or cry tears on the ground because it's...
Well played.
So we get a lot of feedback from that. So we have had some sensitive people work here, a good number of them actually, and they feel like, and this is interesting because you're talking about like feeding ghosts, right? Ones that are maybe not so hungry or not so aggressive. Or they're more kind.
They're well-fed ghosts.
Right.
Well-fed
So
ghosts, yeah.
people trying to leave the basement feeling a pulling sensation. So when you're climbing out of the staircase that comes out of the basement, feeling like you're being like someone's pulling you from coming out. They want you to stay, right? Yeah. So
it's been a long time since we brought up the attic ghost and the basement ghost. I have a theory that the reason why basements and attics are so haunted, because they're not primarily where you live.
Yeah.
You don't live in the attic, you don't live in the basement, so why are there spirits there? Is because of a recognition of their own death. They know they're dead, so we spend our whole lives explaining that dead people belong in the ground.
Okay.
So the basement is a logical place for spirits to dwell because they understand their position. Defiant spirits will go as far from the ground as possible and end up in the attic. So, they are trying to disprove or they're in denial of their death, and they're running from where they are conditioned to know to go. So, the idea of the needy ghosts, the help me, ghosts are in the basement. And they can be aggressive in their need, because they just want
desperate.
Rest. They want that whatever it is, because in a lot of cases it's just a question of not knowing. Could you imagine dying and then just not knowing what to do next, and you're just kind of hoping, there wasn't a light, and you're like, supposed to do something, and then somebody comes along and you're like, hey, do you know what? Do you know?
Fascinating, because 307 being like the highest point in the hotel, you got a lot of activity up there, and the basement the same. So. Another thing about our town is that the Confederacy was dissolved here, which it's a historical point of interest for sure. But around that time during the war, the Civil War, there were a ton of tunnels dug underground. There's still a couple of entrances off Spring Street. Carla's got one behind her building. Maybe you guys will get to see it today, but behind the CPA office, there's one. That's good. But there, the tunnels connected a few areas. So they connected some of the prominent homes here in the community that the tunnel is connected to their basement. Most all been filled in since then, but the Fitz basement was supposed to be connected as part of this, even though the Fitz basement is a post-Civil War construction. And it was connected to a part of town called Gully Town. Gully Town is our historic African-American neighborhood.
Sure.
So it would have been down here in our gully. It would have been some permanent homes, but a lot of like shanties and lean-tos. So it was a highly populated area of people that served the downtown community.
Is gully some derivative of gullah?
Perhaps.
Does it come from the gullah? Because when you say it, I was like, oh, that's interesting, because we're away from the line that defines Gully and Geechee.
Yeah.
Gullah and Geechee, excuse me. So the Gullahs are South Carolinian, primarily South Carolinian slaves, and then the Geechee were primarily across the Savannah River.
Yeah, in
we
Georgia.
get the Geechee.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear it, because I was like, oh, I wonder if that has something to do with it.
It may. You know, we're pretty close to
Because also, I guess gullies are valleys.
Yeah. And Fort Washington Park, which is the Revolutionary Fort that they presume was, they don't know the exact location, but they presume it was down that way some way. It's sort of if you go down there, it's sort of there is a gully down there, that sort of like crowds around a pretty well moving creek. So maybe that's why people live back there, but that's interesting. We are kind of very near to the river. So I know.
Worth investigation.
So
Absolutely.
Another thing that we hear, there are a good number of, there's a story of lost Confederate gold that you may have heard a lot about or seen a lot about in this community.
I actually read Skeet's book on Washington, Georgia, because I was doing research on stolen Confederate gold.
Sure.
And that was the only resource I could find at the time, because this was like early aughts, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's lots of stories, and it's throughout the South.
Yeah.
Postmaster General steals, gold bullion from the Confederate and the Confederate gold. As a matter of fact, tickling my brain, I think there's a story going on right now, like 2018 maybe, that the FBI found a cache of Confederate gold, and now there's claims that they stole it.
The FBI?
No.
Yeah, the FBI people who found it, because they went into a cave stating that they had located the gold. They came out like, nope, no gold here.
Well, it will be lost gold if you find it, right? So let's just keep
Exactly.
it lost. But there are people, treasure hunters.
Oh yeah.
Like legit funded treasure hunters that come to the community to stay, and they stay at the hotel, of course, and hunt on Danburg Road, some of the older plantations and farms where there are wells, and they dig up wells and stuff and find good stuff. But yeah, so that's always good. The gold being run through the tunnels and the blah, 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 blah. That group of our most recent group of treasure hunters had a fascinating young sensitive with them, and she wanted to go in the basement a lot when she was here, and she reported like just sadness down there, feeling just women just crying, like sadness, and that's disturbing. I like to, because I spend so much time here, I like to think that everything's just, all of our ghosts are happy and knocking books over and spinning pots and stuff. But yeah, that was pretty intense. So,
Interesting.
Story of sadness.
Well, we'll let y'all know when we go down there.
We'll be taking some ventures into the cellar.
Basement. But yes.
We're going to talk Debria into going to the basement all by herself.
Yes. Yeah, Debria's going to go down there, and she's going to wear a body cam so we can watch from above what happens to her. It'll
Cool.
be fun.
Yeah.
And then once you're down there, Debria, you put a blindfold on.
Yeah. And then you spin 3 times, spit, and then also lay on the ground and draw a pentagram.
There we go.
That's how you do it.
We've been torturing Debria.
This is Debria's true first intense investigation with us, so we have been messing with her.
Oh, goodness.
Including creating a spirit named Simon that lives under her bed to tickle her toes. So
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
that's so
Debria's over there going, she admitted that Simon isn't real.
Yeah, even as a skeptic, I still sometimes jump from the door of my room to my bed just in case.
Yeah. No, you don't want to be within arm's reach. Also, I want to talk to whoever designed the bed of 307. Why is it so far off the ground? There's enough room for a full-grown man to hide under my bed. This is not normal. Nobody should have beds that people can get under anymore. We've seen too many movies. We know too many things.
Yeah.
But that bed, there's a good foot and a half off the ground.
Simon has to have room, Chris. Simon has to have room to reach you.
Some of our beds are going to be like original to the property or like are time period appropriate. Mm-hmm. So they. All beds back then would have been pretty high off the ground and would have been pretty narrow.
It's another storage place. I understand. I get it. But when you're doing a ghost hunt and you're sitting on the ground and you look over and you're like, oh, a full-grown man can be under here. Like, I should not be able to fit under your bed. That's a rule of thumb. Chris Soucy should not fit under your bed.
And your headboard should not look like a headstone.
Yeah.
It looks like that.
It looks like a giant, very ornate headstone. And I'm like, great. So I'm lying in bed. Also, it's a very loud bed. Mm-hmm. So like, even when I turn my head, it's like, okay, I'm sorry.
Like, don't move, Chris.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
You
gotta be still if we're going to eat you.
Old bed, yeah. Has lots of stories to tell, but
I'm sure it does.
I say that I wish that the ballroom the walls could tell stories. It's this property would have been the nicest hotel in town. There were 4 hotels when this hotel was built because Washington was like a big deal economically. But this hotel would have been the property where if let's say, the governor or some, dignitary were coming to town, they would stay at the Fitz. So this room would have seen a lot of like receptions of important people. So I think it's got good energy in here. So we enjoy it.
Absolutely. I mean, it is definitely one of those hotels that you feel the past with it.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Which you see a lot with historic hotels that have especially kept the historic preservation part of it. They, like y'all have done a good job, like not touching too much of it to become modern. Like obviously there's modern amenities and things like that, but it's not one of those hotels where it's like, oh, it looks historic on the outside and then you come inside and it looks like every other hotel in America. But
lots of character in this hotel.
Lots of character.
And that too, lends itself to the idea of haunting, is that energy, if it moves in the same pattern, is a comfortable thing that, and a lot of people talk about, like when they renovate houses, a lot of supernatural activity happens because you're changing the energy. You're changing the way the energy flowed through the house. And now the spirits are probably worried that their anchors are going to, just set them adrift. So this building definitely, like walking around the hotel late at night, you're just like, oh yeah. People have been doing this for 100 years. Yeah. We've been walking this path for 100 years.
Also, just a fun thing, I think the kids pulled the air freshener out of the wall last night.
Yeah. Oh, funny.
That was weird, too.
They don't appreciate those.
Oh, yeah. Well, they were probably like, this scent again? We want something new. Because we were coming out of one of the rooms.
307.
It was out of 307.
Our room after the ghosts.
And we look in the hallway, and in the center of the hallway is the little plug-in, and we're like, that was not there. And like we were one of the only people. There may have been like one other room that was occupied, and so there was no any inclination of another human being being in the hotel. So we were like, that's weird. Yeah. But my bet is it was the kids being like, let's see what happens when we do this.
When they move things, it's like they move them a little further than if it were to just fall. And that's, for me,
that's the interesting thing is that it wasn't like directly under it. It was like
in the middle of the hallway. It was like,
they like knocked it over. Yeah.
Or it was the ghost cat, which would be really cute.
Cat.
That would be really cute, honestly. I'm all about a ghost cat and ghost animals. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so y'all spend some time down there, and it goes like the property. So our back patio would have been that area as well. But your closest link to it is going to be in the basement of the Fitz.
Right. You're on the level with the bodies.
Right.
Literally.
At that point,
yeah. So watch for little like finger bones sticking out. I'm just kidding.
But
that's how you get a corpse bride.
It's true. The back gates, though, we started the investigation out there, and we were like, these kind of look like the entry gates to a
these
cemetery.
look like a cemetery entry gate. It's like we realize that they're not, but knowing the history of the building and knowing that there was a cemetery here, so these look like cemetery gates.
So the couple that restored the family that restored the property in 2002 did a great job of making it look like it would have looked in 1898, down to the gates and things like that. So I think it adds to the, like you said, the historic ambiance of the facility adds to the sentiment or the people's sensitivity, I think, because you're able to really picture yourself being in that era, in that Gilded Age era or that late Victorian era. We have a lot of historical reenactors that come to reenactment balls and dances here because they get to, like, aside from the fact that they're electric lights, they get to sort of dress up and just pretend like they're in 1890 or whatever time they want to pretend they're in. So
that's cool.
That's fun. Like I said, we celebrate weirdos here, so like bring it on.
Yes. We also celebrate weirdos. So
we are weirdos.
Yes, exactly. From one weirdo to another, the Fitzpatrick welcomes you.
Absolutely. And and it is fun to dress up in period attire every once in a while and go do balls and things like that, because you don't see it a ton anymore.
Yeah.
Like reenactment sort of deals. So that is a really cool thing that y'all are doing. Also, with the drone photo, what is your take? So we had mentioned, we at first thought that it might have been Chris's room, but obviously we're not that familiar with the layout of the hotel. So you were saying it might have been like room 303?
303, I think my husband said he thought it was. Yeah, I mean, that could be, I don't know, we've had reports of things from all the rooms. There are some that get better hits than others consistently, but we've had reports of visitations, sightings, feelings, phenomena from all of the 17 rooms. So, who knows?
Absolutely. I mean,
walls don't contain ghosts necessarily.
That is true.
And again, if you're carrying ghosts with you and you come to a place where they can get enough juice to make themselves known, you may not be experiencing the ghost of the place. You might be experiencing the ghost that follows you around.
Your own ghost.
Yeah, your own ghost. Because, lots of ghosts don't have the ability to project or make themselves known until they come to a place where the energy is right for that kind of interaction.
That's fascinating as well. Never thought about it that way.
Well, and that's just it. Long ago, I had a long interview with somebody who basically said people are more likely to be haunted than houses. People are the source of life, and really, what is a ghost except something that is lingering to have more life?
Yeah.
And so, attracted to life and being with life and following people around is a norm. But if you're not sensitive, you'll never notice it until you come to a place where there's enough energy that it can overcome the barrier.
Sure. I'm a total type A person, so I don't open myself up to it very much.
There you go. There you go.
That's fair.
I'm but maybe they don't feel they're intimidated by me. They don't feel comfortable around me, which is, hey, I'm good.
Whatever works.
That's okay.
I've got things to do here, ghosts. Okay, so
absolutely. Yeah, and especially too, what we like to tell people as well is sometimes the ghost that you're experiencing could have been dropped off by the person before you staying in the room. Yeah, that happens a lot, especially with hotels. Just because spirits will find you'll go to the place spirits attached to you or whatever, and then it realizes I kind of like this place. This has got a good energy, or it likes the other spirits that are around it, or it knows that it can be comfortable there, and it'll just detach, and now you have new spirits that are associated with the room. So, which I think is interesting.
That's terrifying.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah, it happens a lot in our theater. We get new spirits all the time.
Theaters as a whole, any theater is a great exchange point. Because there's all that energy, all that excitement, there's all that life. A lot of people gathering, and they're being anonymous. Yeah. People aren't looking at you like this. We're all looking in one direction. So a spirit can be there and feel alive. And so a lot of people drop off their ghosts at theaters.
Feel alive. That's interesting. They're part of the crowd.
Right. They're part of the crowd.
They are.
They're acting just like everyone else. So they don't have that isolation syndrome and feeling, which can make them lash out.
And sometimes they're creepier than others.
Sometimes they're creepier than others.
Yeah. But it would make sense if that was the case for that room, especially in the drone photo, because there was just so much going on in that photo. I was like, okay, ghost dog, little girl ghost, which honestly, if you are going to drop a ghost off of me, drop the ghost weenie dog, because that's really cute.
Yeah.
But it had like ghost dog, little girl ghost, which could have very easily been one of these girls, but
The Fitzpatrick girls, sure.
and then
But looked kind of like a skull.
Yeah, skull head and then demented, creepy face. So,
and also, it can just be reflections on glass.
That is also the case.
worth throwing in there is that we are geared to see things, especially as ghost hunters. We look at things all day long, and we're just like, oh, do you see that?
Well, the human brain wants to make sense of
absolutely.
things, right?
Exactly.
The mystery is not easy for us to
we
deal
don't
with.
we actually don't like mysteries without solution.
Yeah,
true.
we like mysteries that have answers.
We've made up like whole religions about that, right?
That is exactly what all religion and mythology is a bunch of riddles that we answered with somebody big and powerful did it.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Brittany, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing the stories of your lovely hotel.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Come see us. We're open 365 days a year. The pub's open Wednesday through Friday. Yeah, we have a lot of fun in there. We have something going on every night. We do 2 live music performances there a week. We do like an adult music bingo on Wednesday nights, and we play a really fun and engaging trivia game on Sunday nights. So
excellent.
If you come to Washington, you think small town, there's lots of cool stuff to do. A lot of super nice people in Washington. I mean, very really warm and welcoming folks.
Yes.
And then there are several good watering holes, and ours is one of them. So
yes, absolutely. Yes, definitely make your way over to Washington. We will tell you that in every single episode that we're doing of this this particular series. So definitely come down to Washington, stay at the Fitzpatrick.
Follow us on Facebook. We're very active on Facebook with both the Fitz and Maddie's.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So with that, though, thank you guys for listening to today's episode. And my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all. Alrighty, and now we have Miss Jan with us, who is another wonderful citizen of Washington, Georgia, and her husband actually is a direct descendant of the Fitzpatrick family. So Miss Jan, welcome on.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your husband's connection.
Okay, his great-grandfather was Thomas Fitzpatrick, and the Fitzpatrick family migrated. The great-grandfather, Patrick Fitzpatrick, came to the United States from Ireland, and they lived not far from here in a little town called Lexington. And over the years, they went to Lancaster, South Carolina. I don't know why, but they came there and then eventually ended up in Washington. Interesting thing about the Catholic influence in Washington, they're all buried at, and you might want to take a hike just over on North Alexander, is the Catholic cemetery. That's where Patrick and Thomas and John and their descendants are buried. So it's a beautiful cemetery. And we also had it was called St. Joseph's Home Orphanage, and it's still, the building is still up there. It was a church, it was a school for many years, and back in the day of the 60s, it housed Cuban refugees from coming out of Cuba. They weren't really orphans, but they were coming to America, and their family couldn't come with them, so they were there until they reached a certain age. And my husband did go there for school until he reached the 5th grade, and then came to public school, so they had moved here. So anyway, that's the story of that family, but the Fitzpatricks, John and Thomas, were, as I said, the only 2 sons of Patrick Fitzpatrick, and John was never married, and Thomas had he was married and had 2 daughters, and one, it was my husband's mother, Mildred Fortson. Mildred Fortson Anderson, that's her name. She was married to a Fortson, and Mary Fortson Darby. So they lived here for most of their life, and they both passed away just in recently 10 years or so. And so the descendants that live here are some of the Darbys and some of the Anderson family, but there's not that many that live here. They were mercantile. They had a mercantile business over in South Carolina, and but their roots were in Washington. And when the hotel that was here burned, it destroyed a lot of the property around where the hotel was. And so Thomas and John came from Lancaster, South Carolina, rebuilt the hotel. And so that's where the Fitzpatrick Hotel originated in that time. I did want to read you just a short paragraph because I can't really say it like he did, but it says the Fitzpatrick brothers returned to their hometown of Washington and began construction on the hotel March 20th, 1899. Mr. John Fitzpatrick was here on Saturday looking after the magnificent new hotel he is building and also inspecting the elegant furniture which is being received. Our people are very much gratified that he has made up his mind to add such an ornament to our town and will always show a high appreciation. The Fitzpatrick brothers installed the first telephone system in Washington. They also owned the first telephone company in Washington, and it was later sold to the Dyson family, which still own it. And so he says, we have got the grandest old county in town upon God's green earth. So let us all pull together and make her the garden spot of the South. We return here after an absence of 30 years. We were told time after time again that Washington was dead, that we could do no business. Was your prediction correct? No, 1,000 times no. Our 3 large stores are always crowded. We are doing twice the business we anticipated. And it says in the year 1899 that they did gross $100,000, which is pretty good in 1899. And John died in 1907, and Thomas died in 1911, leaving the wife Marie Fitzpatrick, who was the mother of Mildred and Mary. And so she actually was a businesswoman herself. She ran and managed the only movie theater in Washington for many, many years. It was just closed in the early 70s. So she did that for a long, long time before she passed away. So that's kind of the history of the Fitzpatrick Hotel and the Fitzpatrick family.
Wow,
it's interesting, and it seems that there is a theme of cycles for Washington where people think, oh, it's going. Oh no, wait, it's coming back.
Yeah, we hope that's going to be the case.
Large businesses close, and then there's a resurgence of interest and love for the area, and these creative people start showing up and really reinvigorating the economy of the place, because it's a fascinating nugget of a town. It's very compressed, but it seems so influential. When you look at its history and you look at all the things that have happened here in the crossroads that have happened in this small place, because we're also not really near a lot of things. You're not near the ocean. You're not near a major thoroughfare, and yet it was a major thoroughfare.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, well, that's true, and I think we are coming out of maybe a depression since COVID.
Sure.
My husband and I I was born here. He moved here later, but after we got married, we left and came back 45 years later. So we're kind of like learning the ropes again. We came back in 2000.
Like the Fitzpatrick brothers. They had left and
came back.
We
returned and came back in 2019. He was in the military, and, we moved around. And so finally we decided to come back, because we own a house here. We own a house that was built in 1820.
Oh, wow.
And so some of the descendants of the Fitzpatricks have lived there, but on the other side of the family are the Toombs, descendants of Robert Toombs. So you got both.
Oh, y'all got everybody.
All the influence of Washington.
He does. I just married into it. But anyway, so that's part of our history too, is the homes here. And I will say, just for everybody out there, we have had so many people moving to Washington. We just had 3 families move from California, and they didn't know each other, but they all live on the same street, and they all bought an old house, and they are very. They bring a lot of new ideas, a lot of action, and just a lot of it's really invigorating to see.
Wonderful.
And I have a little antique shop, so I always ask, what brings you to Washington? Because I don't know how long they've been here. And just an amazing, I was just driving through, or, somebody told me I should look, we just found it on the internet. And truly, that's how a lot of people come here. And they come here and they just fall in love with it. And we have just, I don't know how many, probably about, let's say 40 or 50 new families that have come from, California, Rhode Island, Michigan, Minnesota. Wow. Maybe it's our weather, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very temperate.
It is. But it does get hot,
Absolutely.
So it's, I think we have great hope for this.
Well, and it seems like such a tight-knit community, and it's just everybody's so sweet here. Like, it is.
Well, that's good to hear.
It's unbelievable. We were talking about that
last
night. We were like, everyone's just so nice to us. And granted, we're from Savannah. We appreciate a nice, friendly community.
There's a lot of hospitality going on, but there's also a lot of surliness, and you kind of expect it. The smaller a town, the more insular it will seem. Outsiders are kind of always regarded with a cautious eye. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen any of that here.
Yep. And so, did you spend the night in the hotel?
We did. We did. Yes. Oh boy. Well, it's lovely. It is
it's a beautiful hotel.
Yeah.
And it lives up to its reputation.
Yes, it does. Chris stayed in the most haunted room, which
that's 307.
307. Yep.
307.
Yep.
I'm confused.
It's okay. Brittany was telling us room 200 is also very, very haunted. Honestly, all of them are. But Chris definitely had a slumber party with the ghosts last night.
It was.
Was it the little girls?
So I did not experience the little girls. I did have a slight inclination that I saw a woman standing in my room. But for the most part, it was just a night of weird sounds, weird sensations. I found myself trying to sleep without moving. They're don't move at all, because if you move, they see you like they're T-Rexes or something. It's just be still, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But it's a very mood enhanced place. You get this sensation of the history of the place, and this idea that so much has happened in these walls, and there's still just lingering energies from long ago.
And I'm sure the spirits were active in our room as well. Down in, we stayed in room 100. I'm sure they were active as well, but I am the heaviest sleeper to ever exist. And JT jokes that he's like, I bet the ghosts were floating above our bed. And they're like, hey, we're here. You were looking for us. And none of us noticed it because we were all just dead to the world practically. But
we probably were after the evening.
It was a long day, yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, JT mentioned a story.
Yes.
Yes.
So I don't have any stories, but it directly related to that. My husband, as I said, was in the Army, and and his friend came to visit, and he said he'd like to just stay in the hotel. So he said, okay, fine. Didn't mention anything about a ghost or the spirits, nothing. And I'm not going to name him because he might hear this, but he and my husband, he's huge. He's a huge guy. I just wanted, because he's not like some little person that might have gotten scared or whatever. I mean, he was, he and my husband were in the Green Berets together, and they have certainly seen some other stuff that was scary. But anyway, he decided he would stay here. So everything was fine, and then so the next morning my husband called him. He said, hey, how'd you sleep? And he said, oh my God. And then he said, well, Andy, my husband, I said, what's the matter? He said, I have never experienced anything in my life, never. He said, I woke up about 3:30 in the morning, and it was just a distant crying of a little girl. Not a loud cry, it was just a crying, a little bit. And he said he just could not imagine what this was. So he tried to go back to sleep. Well, he was convinced. He actually said to my husband, I know you were outside my door doing this. And Andy said, my God, it was 3:30 in the morning. So our friend got up. He actually got up, looked out the window, and was looking for my husband's white truck because he was convinced that he was out there playing a joke on him. So he didn't see it. He thought, well, he parked down the street, So anyway, he tried to go back to sleep. And then my husband was saying, no. He said, I was dead asleep at home at 3:30. So he said later on he heard it again. Same little, just a whimpering, sounded like a little girl. And he jumped up, went to the door, and pulled it open because he thought my husband was out there playing a trick on him. I mean, had come to the door, and acting like a little girl crying. And really, we had not mentioned anything. And so, again, my husband said, I did not do that. And he was really, really blown away. He said, I've never, ever had an experience like that. Never. So it was really just straight like that, And he came over and we started discussing. He said, I just, he had cold chills down his neck, and he said, I just cannot tell you. He said exactly what happened. He said, and then my husband said, well, no, I was not over there trying to scare you. So for somebody like that who never had an experience and who, probably, was a huge guy and, used to sleeping, all around the world and everything. So that was pretty jarring.
That's pretty intense, yeah.
It was very, his whole body was intense when he was telling us in person. So that was the story. And we still don't know.
I bet it was the little girls, the Fitzpatrick girls, who were like,
well, there's the story of the girl who fell down the stairs.
Exactly.
And to hear a whimpering cry, that
make
sounds
sense.
Exactly like
and he heard it twice.
Yeah,
right.
That's fascinating.
And he said he could not go back to sleep. So he was awake for about 3:30 on.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and another.
I sympathize.
Yeah. Right. You asked for other stories, not here, but in our house, which is down the street. Actually, was a descendant. The lady that owned it, that we bought it from, was a descendant of the Toombs family, Gabriel Toombs, who was the nephew of Robert Toombs. So she lived there until she died, and so we bought the house way back years ago before we even came back here. We rented it out for 42 years. So I don't know if anybody else had any ghost stories or not. Sure. But my brother was living there right after we bought it, and he was asleep upstairs in the bedroom where the lady had slept. And I mean, he's not into spirits or anything like that either. And he's a big guy, and he woke up and he said he felt that someone had sat on the foot of his bed. And he looked, and there was an indention. And that really kind of freaked him out. So we just kind of thought, well, maybe it's the lady that used to live here. That was her room. She died there. But I don't know anybody else who has had that experience in the house. So we do have other homes that have spirits.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, it's, you see that a lot with houses where somebody lived the majority of their life and died in it. Or we have a house in Savannah that's actually a museum now, but one of the former docents does that.
Yeah.
And so basically she had a favorite room, and that's how you know she's there, is because you'll see on the bed, because obviously it's a museum, it'll always have freshly made beds, and you'll see a fresh butt print on the bed, and they're like, oh, that's Emily, and because it was her favorite room and things like that.
Miss Pickles.
Miss Pickles. They call her Mrs. Pickles, but she was a young girl, so we were like, that's interesting, but. But yeah, you see that a lot with older homes, and it's jarring if it's your first paranormal experience for sure, but
I don't think you ever forget it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right,
My-
exactly.
our friend will never forget it.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm certain of it. It's a weird sensation to feel something that you can't fully process how it's happening. It's a weird feeling in general. So it's totally fair that they be freaked out. But thank you, Miss Jan, so much.
Thank you.
for
I hope
coming
I
on
gave you some
today.
information.
Absolutely.
That,
Wonderful.
we do have a great pride in this hotel in Washington. I don't know if they told you, in 1993 there was a grand opening. It was pretty much in such disarray. I mean, it had a tree growing up into this.
Oh.
Yeah, it had been neglected for years, and a family from Athens came and they got grants and they restored it to this level, and I think they did a great.
Yeah,
They
it's
really did.
amazing. Yeah, when you really think that it was derelict, you don't see any signs
we
of that.
can't imagine Washington without it now, and it was that was long before we came back, and it was we were just amazed at what they had done,
Right.
and how tastefully it had done. So, but thank you for talking to me, and thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Then after that, we were taken on a grand tour of the town by Miss Carla, who is the kind of just woman of the town.
She
Truly.
really is. She's the ambassador.
Yeah.
She's the ambassador of Washington, Georgia.
Yeah,
She will welcome you
She
with
loves
open
that
arms.
town
She does.
deeply. She's not even from that town, but she loves that town, and she has put so much time and energy in getting that town
Yes.
on the map. So, shout out to Miss Carla.
Yeah, and she drove us around to a bunch of different places, took us into this very creepy antebellum kind of Greek revival
Beautiful,
style
though.
home.
Gorgeous.
Such a beautiful home.
And it was I believe she said this was like the family home of one of the other women we interviewed, Jan. This is where her husband grew up,
Yes,
and
that's
things
what it was.
like that.
That's what it was.
Creepy,
Very
creepy
did you
house.
Did you feel any?
I felt the presence of an elderly man, which, mind you, the previous owners, I came to find out afterwards, were two older gentlemen who
Right.
did not live there. They lived in Pennsylvania, and they used the place as storage. But one of them was deceased. And I'm wondering if I was picking up on him in some regard, or the fact that it had a bunch of old antique furniture.
It was a
And
storehouse
something
for
was attached to
antiques.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no telling. And it was a huge open building, which was so fascinating because in Savannah, our big lavish homes are full of very tight corners and very tight areas. Like our main, we don't have grand halls. Like we have like parlor rooms, but if you're walking down the hall, it's usually a pretty thin hall. This place, the halls
so
were
wide.
ginormous.
I wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
I did. I wanted to buy
She
it.
was trying to talk into buying it. It's still got so much work to do. It needs a new roof. It needs air
needs a
conditioning.
lot of love.
But it's beautiful.
It's massive.
It's beautiful.
You could probably get it for $200, and then you'd have to put another $250 in. We estimated.
because it needs new.
But then it would probably be worth millions.
It's true.
Because it's gorgeous.
It had big pylons and
And
debris is
huge
putting all
property.
B-roll
The
in
land
there.
is huge. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you're out there looking for a place that's a little fix me up.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. It needs all new bathrooms. It's got walls that need to be replaced and things like that. But
yeah.
if you want to put love into it, it's a good house.
So-
But yes, so she drove us to there. She took us on a drive around the entire town.
Took us to
Basically,
Rest Haven.
Took us to Rest
Rest
Haven.
Haven.
Rust Haven
Rest
Cemetery.
Haven Cemetery.
Where the spirits don't rest.
Or like a
That was
seagull.
Sorry, you're nowhere near the sea.
Yeah. So then after that begins our evening.
Yes.
Yes.
The evening where we went live publicly on both TikTok and YouTube, and it was active.
Yeah, it was. I mean, so it started out even before we even started investigating, because at that point they all knew we were there. And so
All right. I need to. I have video of the cat ball that I should send right now before I forget.
Absolutely. Well, it first started with we were eating dinner in the ballroom. We had taken our dinner to go, and we were like, oh, we'll just eat it at the hotel. Well, we were sitting at this table, and I was sitting in a chair that was looking through one of the open doors to the hallway, and I could see the staircase. And I see this woman with darker brown hair, and she's wearing a ball gown walking up the stairs. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, I was like, oh, I just saw a woman walking up the stairs. That will come into play later because that freaked me out.
Yes.
But yes, so that was the first encounter. And then we all took our naps so we could have a little bit of sleep before we started investigating. And then we reconvened in room 201.
The children's nursery.
The children's nursery.
Which we were informed that the two youngest daughters passed in the hotel, but they passed in that room.
Yes. And so Chris had already been in there for a bit, just scoping it out, setting up his equipment. We came up there, and I immediately felt compelled to put a cat ball on the floor. And that mostly came from my place of like, well, if we're looking for children, I don't know how tall they are. I don't know, because we didn't have an exact idea how old they were. I'm like, for safekeeping, I'm going to put it on the floor where they can easily get to it. Mm-hmm. And so immediately we sit down, and within 5 minutes or so after I put the cat ball down, the cat ball starts going off on the floor. And so then JT was like going into investigative mode, and we're like, hold on, if we're going to do this, we got to record it. We weren't live streaming yet.
We actually missed the most direct interactions we had because
we weren't
it
recording.
Happened before we even pulled out any recording equipment. So we caught it on the phone, and we do have some interaction, but there was a time when it was very immediate. It was like, touch the ball.
Well,
yeah.
And it responded to toy, which even
the word
more
toy,
so
right.
emphasized to us that it was one of the children, because when we'd say ball, it didn't seem like it was working. And then we were like, it's a toy. You can touch it. You can play with it. We were letting them know, like, you can play with this all you want. And immediately when we gave them permission to touch the toy, it would go off.
Yep.
And then I went over there and I wanted to see if it would play with me. Basically, I would try to see if it would roll the ball back to me. But I don't think that these particular entities had enough energy stored up to actually do that. Because
we'll do that next time in the kitchen.
Yes. Because the furthest it got was touching. Because even after that, I put it back and we got it again, I believe, where it touched the ball. So that was interesting. And then when the live stream started, we started out in there, and that was when we immediately got the two little girls coming through.
Immediately.
Are there any children in the room with us? Is there anyone?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And remember, y'all, she cannot hear us at all. Is a little girl in the room with us?
Yes.
All right. A little girl. Were you the one playing with the cat ball earlier when we had the camera out? We're not here to hurt you at all.
It was.
Whoa. That's direct. These are direct answers, y'all. All right. Thank you so much for talking with us. What's your name?
Two of us.
Oh, there's two of you. Did y'all die in this room?
I'm thinking.
You're thinking? Okay. How long have you lived in the hotel?
For a while.
Are you related to each other?
Twins.
Whoa. Whoa. Again, just for anyone new who's joined us, she can't hear or see anything right now. She has, if you can hear, she has the spirit box blasting in her ears, and she is literally regurgitating direct answers. This is actually quite unbelievable.
We're here.
We're so glad you're here. Honestly, what part of the room are you right now? Are you in this room with us?
Over here.
Over here. Everything good with YouTube Live? Okay, good, because it's recording and I want to get this. I really want to get this, so that's perfect. No, it's awesome. Can you tell us what part of the room? Where you are in the room?
Desk.
Oh my God.
So I was not privy to a lot of the questions that were being asked. So do you guys want to kind of tell the story of how that Estes method session went?
Yeah,
absolutely. It was very responsive. Like when you're doing the Estes method, a lot of times it takes interpretation of answers. It takes interpretations of the words that are coming through. A lot of times you're like, I'm not sure, but it was, how many are here? Are you alone? How old are you? All these things that got direct response. And we were using the Seer app, which I had mentioned before. And one of the interesting things was there was a point in time at which the spirit was asking us to follow it, to come with it away. And specifically, it would show us the others. It was saying, I will take you to where the others are. And we kept asking where and where, but we were having a hard time figuring it out. And then we saw a picture, or Madison saw a picture of a man in a tuxedo.
Yes.
Which we immediately assumed meant ballroom.
Yeah.
And even during that episode, I want to say that I saw what I thought was JT's head. But then I realized JT was sitting closer than he was. What I was seeing was it looked like somebody behind one of those little mini fridges.
Yeah.
It looked like somebody had popped up and popped back down behind the mini fridge. So all of these things were happening all at once.
Yeah, it was very overwhelming. And we got Elizabeth twice. That was the thing. We got Elizabeth the night before. I
still don't believe Elizabeth was one of the girls.
Oh.
I just don't.
Yeah.
And here's why. One of them is we know the girls' names, and neither of them are Elizabeth.
Okay.
It was a G name and an M name.
Okay.
But in my room when Elizabeth came through, there was nothing childish about.
There was nothing childish about her.
Thing.
Yeah.
And so I think we were still having a tug of war. I think there were still spirits who were trying to come through for different things.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but that Elizabeth did come through and came through multiple times. But we also got Maggie and Gabby and Margaret.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think those were the children, Gabby and Margaret.
Okay.
I feel like Elizabeth is a free roamer.
Yeah.
We don't know what Elizabeth was ultimately after, but I think she was interfering with our conversation.
I remember looking at Chris. I remember there was a point in time where Chris, you and I looked at each other in astonishment.
Yes.
Because we were getting so many, and Debria will obviously show this, because she has the video of it, but we were getting so many direct answers, one after the other.
Right after the other.
That it was like, this is crazy.
It was crazy. It was a full conversation.
It was a full
because
conversation.
Because it wasn't, a lot of times, and even in this Estes method, you'll see there are pauses.
Yes.
You'll ask a question and there's a long time. Sometimes you have to ask the question multiple times because there's nothing coming through for a long time. But there was like a string of questions that was literally like boom, just boom, two boom, people talking to each other.
1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, it's so
true. And that was and the information was very compelling and very sound. It wasn't nonsense.
Yes.
And that was a big thing is because the Estes method oftentimes leads to answers that you're like, I don't know what that means. I don't understand that. But this was constantly reaffirming what we were asking, and to the point at which we knew that we had to go to the ballroom.
Exactly.
Just because of the nature of the conversation was, follow me, come on, time to go. Let's.
Yeah.
It was
like, are you coming and stuff like that. It was stuff like that. I don't know if these are direct quotes because it was really long and really exciting. And
it's a very long Essie's Method.
Luckily, we had everything recorded, but Lord.
And then we moved to the ballroom.
Yeah.
Which was even more fascinating because there in the ballroom, we were getting a lot of play with me, a lot of let's play, hide under the tables, things like that. So you were really feeling this, but then came, my parents are gone.
Yep.
And other things, but we also felt that the mother was there.
Yes.
Which made it kind of hurt my heart.
Well, she said Fitzpatrick.
Right. Yeah.
When I was like, who are we talking to? Or who is your mother or something like that? She goes, Fitzpatrick. And we were like, what?
And so then we had this very interesting dynamic, which is worth mentioning. Ghosts don't necessarily see each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not necessarily. I mean, certain brands of ghosts might miss each other and or exist on different planes of the reality that we all share. I worry that the mother cannot see her children.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something causing that separation, and it might be the mother's grief. The mother's grief will not allow her to know that her children are okay because she carries with her pain, and the pain drives away. Because there's something going on there that I found interesting, because it seemed like we were talking to the mother.
Yes.
But it seemed like the children could not see the mother, or were lamenting that they had no mother.
And I think that we were talking mainly with the kids because
it was primarily the kids. Absolutely.
I asked what are you what game do you want to play or some of that, and then you said chase me, tag, and I was like, oh boy,
yeah. I'm
like, I got all these cameras, but I can try. I'm like,
well, and that was just it. It was like, we don't know how. We don't know how to chase you. And it was very likely that had we pursued and kept on those children, they would have led us to the hotel.
Oh, yeah.
They would have taken us to another room and another room and another room.
Well, and that sounds like children.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
They're like, it's specifically from what I could tell just from the spirit boxes, I had no idea. Like I said, I am not privy to any of what was actually.
You haven't even watched it yet.
I haven't even watched it, so all I know is the words that I came through, and it's honestly fascinating to hear what the questions were, because I caught on that they were trying to play with y'all at some point because of the different phrases that were coming through, at least in the ballroom. But most of that was Gabby. From what I picked up, because I was so excited, at least in my head, that she finally said her name. And I was like, oh, okay, she's Gabby.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really interesting,
Yeah. It was very interesting because there definitely seemed to be other spirits that kind of popped in, but they could not maintain. Like Elizabeth seemed like a spirit, even in my bedroom when we were doing the Essie's Method. When Elizabeth came, it seemed like she was quickly forced out.
Yes.
Because we could never get a beat on her. Even though we knew her name, we found ourselves kind of dead ending a lot around Elizabeth because there was this other spirit, that was much more active and much more talkative. And the same seemed to be with these kids. The kids were super stoked, it seemed. The way the responses came and how fast they came and how they seemed to interact with each other. Because it did seem like sometimes Maddie was having a conversation with herself, where one entity would say something and the other entity would either contradict it
absolutely. So. Well, and that's exactly how it came through. Because I try, at least with the Essie's Method, I try to inflect the way that I'm hearing it come through with my own voice so that they get the same kind of feeling. And sometimes it really did feel like sibling bickering. It's because Gabby, I want to say, felt like the older sibling, or at least a more dominant sibling. And then the other girl, she felt like the pestering little sister who was like, no, you didn't do that, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
and they referred multiple times to twins.
Yes.
We heard twins multiple times, which A, is creepy, but B, determines what kind of relationship they have, how close they are, so close that they would be twins, if they weren't twins. And they may have been twins. We were never told. But it seems like that's the kind of detail that would have come up, in telling of the story. But the fact that twins kept coming up, it was definitely we're sisters.
Yep.
There are two of us. All of those things that link to the word twin.
It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So from the ballroom, we went down into the basement where there was a ton of activity. Why is the basement special?
So the basement is still the hole that was dug to remove the bodies. It is still dirt floor, dirt wall.
Georgia red clay. That's about it. It is
insane because you go down and you're like, is this building just sitting on a hole? Where's the foundation?
Right.
What's holding this building up? It's a huge building, and it's just on top of a trench that was dug specifically to remove bodies. And it's almost a labyrinthian feel to it. You get down, and in order to get to anywhere, you have to go through these small little doors. Mm-hmm. And the walls are just like there's some brick pillory, but it's dirt and dirt under your feet, and it has that smell of wet dirt. That smell of, and you imagine you're just in the graves.
Yeah, you
feel like you're walking. And if you leaned against the wall, right on the other side of the wall would be skeletons. It felt that way in all directions. I had a hard time navigating the place because it was so cramped. It was so small. But when we finally found a place where we felt the Estes method would work out best, we were a good ways into, like, we were in the heart of it. Like, if something was chasing us, we'd be dead.
Yes.
Because there was no way to easily get out of where we were. We went through like 2 small doors around
especially for
things.
you.
Yeah, especially for me.
Because
we ultimately just stopped because it was a place I could stand up, and that was it was like, oh, I can stand here. Let's stop here.
Yeah.
And we set Maddie up on a cinder block, and then immediately blindfolded her in the scary basement.
After having to basically crawl down into this hole as well, because they have witch steps. It's not normal.
Which is so cool.
Yeah, it's not even a normal ladder to get down in there. It is so complicated.
It is. It's very complicated, very strange, very disorienting. Because once you're under, you kind of lose track of where the front of the hotel is, where the back of the hotel is. You're like, I'm not sure where I am in relation to the hotel. And keep in mind that the things that we knew about this cemetery was that as a city cemetery, it was where they buried people with no names. It's where they buried executed prisoners. It's where they buried slaves. It's where they buried soldiers. There were, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the dead were buried there. So there is definitely a sensation. It's when you're under that place, it felt terrible.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yes. And not just supernaturally horrible, but like physically safety horrible. Like you felt like any number of terrible things can happen to you down there. But yes, the basement of the Fitzgerald isn't a basement. Fitzpatrick. I keep saying Fitzgerald. Fitzpatrick. Excuse me. The basement of the Fitzpatrick is. So it feels unfinished.
It does. It does.
It feels like an excavation, like an archaeological dig or something.
Super old water pump.
Oh, and the super old water heater, the gigantic monster of a thing. Rusted out. Cool. It's cool.
Yeah. It's very, very cool. So we did an Estes method there, and that was absolutely. That's when we had the most viewers because people started coming in droves. Because like it was insane. Like we were getting direct answers from someone named Edward, and then we asked what the last name was, and we got Lawrence, and then it was like, wait, are we talking to Edward and Lawrence, or is that Edward Lawrence?
Right.
And yeah, it was just unbelievable. We were, we figured that. Oh, we got that Edward went to jail.
He went to jail. He planned an escape with others. They killed him. And he kept asking us for help.
Yep.
To help him out, and that he thought we could help him.
Yep.
But we couldn't get past that because it also seemed like there were other spirits down there. And again, we're in a trench of unmarked graves.
Yes.
We're in a trench where on both sides of us, the dirt, it wasn't like perfectly walled. It was literally like like you had shoveled it up, and so it was like mounds of red clay and dirt on both sides of us, mushrooms growing out of the ground. It was nightmarish. It was a nightmarish place.
And with Edward in particular, he was the most interesting spirit that came through because I felt, so like with the little girls, I could feel them next to me. Like I could feel them standing next to me while I was in the Estes method because I could feel this just cold sensation brushing my arm. But Edward, I felt like he was watching us while I was in it. And immediately he came through and I just was washed with this sense of sorrow and feeling of being forgotten.
Yep.
And Edward said that he had been bought by the city.
Yeah.
The city bought him. He said that he was from Dublin, Ireland.
Well,
but later we heard Texas. Which started sparking the conversation. Is it Edward and Lawrence?
You said middle of Texas.
Middle of Texas.
Yes.
Right.
I actually forgot to look up Dublin, Texas.
Oh, sure.
Because there is a Dublin, Texas.
There's a Dublin, Texas.
Yeah, it's yeah, he was just like, and it was weird because almost as soon as I put the headphones on and I was totally tuned
It's in
out.
the middle of Texas.
There you go, Dublin,
It's
Texas.
in the middle of, the center of Texas. And I think you said, we asked, where are you from? And you said Texas, somewhere in the middle or something like that.
Yeah. And well, I remember that.
Wow.
I remember that phrase that came through. It was he first said Texas, and then he made sure he wanted me to clarify
The
middle of Texas.
Wow.
Because I remember I was like, oh, hold on, middle of Texas, you know, because that's how he like it felt like he wanted me to get like every detail that he had.
Yeah.
Because there was another point, I don't know what the question was that was being asked, but I thought it was funny because he said, "Do you need the dates?"
Yes, that's right.
And
Do you need the date?
We were asking for dates.
Yeah, well, we were asking for either when he was born or when he died.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you said, "Do you need the dates?"
Right. And we got
And
1856.
we were like, ah?
yeah. Which was interesting.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, it felt like he was very intent on like,
yes.
you know, like everything he knew, anything he could give, he was given through us. But yeah, he was definitely getting pushed around a bit by something else down there. But the overwhelming sensation was just like, it kind of goes with the theory that Chris has always said with basement ghosts is they're just clawing for attention. They're like, please, like let me in, you know?
Yeah. What makes a basement ghost desperate is the desire to be done right.
Yep.
You know, to move on, to, you know, the sensation is this can't be it.
Yes.
Dwelling in the dark and being ignored and never seen and never felt.
It
sounds
does.
like hell.
Oh, that was the point I was going to make. I completely tangent myself. But Edward, as soon as I put the headphones on, immediately I hear right here, you know, like.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, it felt like he immediately, as soon as he knew that I was like ready to go, he was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do it, you know.
Maybe he was trying to beat other ghosts,
right.
other spirits to the.
Oh, that's a good point.
Punch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened, and that was absolutely insane. And then we went upstairs, and we did one final Estes, but it seemed like the ghosts.
I think we were all exhausted.
Madison, they were both exhausted, and it was one heck of a night already.
Yeah.
And so it was great.
Now, what I was going to bring up was, if you remember the very loud sound that they heard the first night, when I was closing the very big and heavy door to the cellar, it was too heavy to just gently put down. There comes a point at which it slammed down so loud that it shook the chandeliers.
Which was right out front of our room, which was
right near your room, yeah. And I was just like, could something have been coming out of the cellar?
Oh.
Wow. I asked Miss Brittany for the security footage.
Right.
So for the nights that we stayed there. So if something did happen, there was a camera right there in the corner. Maybe it caught it. I don't know. But yeah,
And they're
I will
motion
definitely,
censored,
I will
so.
definitely review. But it was awesome. We got through the second night and packed up and left. And honestly, I kind of miss it. It's a really cute small town. It has a very haunted hotel and a ton of history too.
Yeah. Also, if you live in a small town that has, notorious hauntings, if you live somewhere that is not being paid attention to, because let's face it, the famous cities, the famous haunted towns, they are getting all this attention, but every town has ghosts.
Yes. Sure.
And every town has ghost stories. And some towns might have ghost stories that are so fantastical and so amazing, but are just never heard.
Yes.
So if you have those, write it to us at ghostmail at hauntedcitypodcast.com. Drop us a line and tell us about your city's haunts, and hopefully at some time this will become the regular activity of going to the lesser known small town haunts, because small town haunts are oftentimes much more compelling.
It's true.
Because they're like diamonds. All this pressure has pushed onto these things, local legends. Every town has that old woman that everyone thought was a witch, or the old man that everyone thought was a killer, and because of that, they live in a legendary haze, and we would love to go and explore that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because we had a great time doing this, and I think we might have found a way to talk to ghosts more often, which is visit places that aren't paid attention to.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because a fed ghost doesn't need to expend energy.
Yeah.
That is true.
That's
is
it.
very true.
That's it.
Yeah. So you guys will all get to see all of that activity that we were experiencing and whatnot, which is super exciting. But we wanted to give you a not so brief synopsis of exactly what happened. But thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. And my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.